So every time one of the class does a presentation, the way that I'm doing the attendance log for the presentation is for you to ask questions about their presentation.
All right, so there's like 4 of them, right?
I think so. I think I only have one for memory.
Okay, because I don't know if I should do 2 or 1 since
Do
they're
all of
kind
them.
of like blended.
Anytime one pops up, do that.
Okay.
Yeah, and the reason is it's good. It's important because I want people to kind of pay attention during the presentations, because the people who, once you do them, you realize, oh, there's a lot more work to it than it seems. And then the second part of it is, which I think is really funny, is it goes by so fast. You're like, oh, I didn't get to say everything I needed to say, and so it's important that you as an audience give some feedback to the people that are writing it, ask questions, and those, you don't have to necessarily answer the questions, but think about the questions as you're going, and it helps you pay attention better. Anyway, yeah, so thank you for Natasha, and for Shelly for making me record this better. Okay, so let's see. So the idea of rasa, okay, rasa is this perception of the spirit of something. What does something spirit mean? I like this word better myself than spirit.
It's intent.
Is a soul an intent?
And it depends on the context you're talking about it. In this one, it sounds like intent or meaning.
Okay, so I'm gonna write the word
Wouldn't
meaning.
it be like life?
Yes, well, I mean, since we're talking about Monty Python, what's the meaning of life? But so this is a really kind of bizarre concept to understand this. What if I draw a picture? Okay, if I draw a picture that's not quite perfect, oh, my computer wants to make it perfect, but if I draw a picture that's not quite perfect, what am I intending to draw there?
A rectangle or a square? No.
Yeah, Sarah, you don't have to ask questions for your presentation.
I answered her.
I saw that. I just wanted to validate her question. I have the chat over here on the screen, so if I point that way, it's over there. Okay, so we have laptop, ironing board, green tea, you guys, and my chat screen. And just
They really need to have a way to set a push to talk other than spacebar so that you can have the chat up and also unmute yourself.
Oh, I can do that, but I don't know. Okay. So, and one of my students is completely mesmerized by the little elephant behind me in my other class. She keeps staring. I walked away for a while to take a break, and she just stared at the little elephant for half an hour, looking at the eyes and the slightly sad expression in the eyes. Can you see the sad expression in the eyes?
Mm-hmm. I know, I stare at it a lot too.
I know, it's pretty distracting. I kind of like
so
Gary.
Pretty.
Anyway, but so here's a question though. Why does it have a sad expression in its eyes?
Because its spirit is sad.
So you're telling me that has an emotion?
Well, it's supposed to have an emotion.
Is it?
Yeah, the way you draw eyes says a lot about how people are.
But is
feeling.
it like we give it the emotion because we connect the sad face?
So trying to understand this idea of rasa is something that's actually kind of important, and that's actually what the talk next class is about, is that when you are trying to understand how things are connected, I'm going to kind of slide over a little bit. when you're trying to understand how things are connected, that actually is a really good way of understanding this idea of rasa, or understanding this idea of spirit. Because when something has a particular spirit, there's a connection that you have with that thing. And there's something that's actually kind of funny that that you give it to. Well, I have to talk about bicycles, because this is where this comes from. Did I go on my little rant about this before for you guys?
I'm sorry, what was
Did I go on my rant about bicycles with you guys in Seoul?
I think it was a different.
Not yet.
Not yet.
I don't think so.
I
I
think
don't
that
remember.
was-
I mean, you talk about bikes a lot, so.
Okay, so
So.
this is something is that I like bicycles a lot, and I'm actually probably going to go another bicycle this afternoon. I'm going to put my hazmat suit on and go. My father-in-law wants a bike to ride around the neighborhood, and so I found a really cool one that'll he can ride around the neighborhood, that's big enough and safe enough for him. But when you get a bicycle, what determines how much you like it?
Many, many details depending on what you're using it for.
But okay, so when you just said many, many details, the details are not what gives it the rasa. The details would be bottom up.
Mhm.
Well, yes, but I mean your use, your purpose for it is going to be the top down. If you're using it for commuting versus using it for like going off-roading with it, it's going to
Okay.
have different things.
Well, no, because I think that I think there's a different set of meaning. And so what happens is that the people develop a different understanding. You can have an analytical, like Mike, can have an analytical understanding of it. And the analytical understanding is that bottom up processing, where you're trying to extrapolate all the parts and how it fits in the world. But there's also a top down where you have this, where it has a meaning behind it. And that meaning behind it, I'm trying to find a vocabulary word that I'm losing. But it supersedes, it beats, it's more important than, it's better than, or it's bigger than the actual parts itself.
Gestalt?
You
The
mean the
gestalt
drawing
is, that's not the word I'm looking for, but I don't know. I got to start playing Scrabble again, because my children are slowly lowering my vocabulary to internet memes.
I think you might be looking for transcends or supersedes.
Supersedes, that's the word I'm looking for. Thank you, Mike. Okay, so the idea of the bike supersedes all of the parts that it has. And so like the gestalt, the top down of the bicycle is what gives it a particular soul or a particular meaning. And so when you start thinking about what the top down is, the bottom up, so I can start labeling all the different parts of a particular bicycle. But the gestalt means that the bike has a name. So how many people here name their cars?
I did.
You did? Okay, what else? Anybody else name their car?
No.
Yeah, Cheyenne did.
Yeah.
The
I think
only
Joe
one.
did.
Name my computer.
Name your computer. Is it called My Computer?
No, it's called Cineblaster.
Cineblast.
Cute.
Awesome. Do you care about it?
A little bit. I paid like $1,000 for it.
So yeah, okay. So maybe the gestalt, the name, comes from the sacrifice.
My wallet sacrifice, yeah.
Well, the sacrifice for importance. And like, so maybe someone who has a car that they keep running because they really need to keep running, and they want it to keep going. Like our poor van, I had a screw in the tire last week, and I went to little tire shop on the corner, and $15 they'll fix it for me. And I was talking to him, and he takes the tire off and he goes, "These are really worn out." I'm like, "I know." But I'm not driving anywhere in the next month or so. So we're going to let it stride for another month before we have to put tires on it. But, and so the van, it really doesn't matter. I mean, the poor van, the job of the van is to just get us where it's going. It doesn't have a name. It doesn't have a soul. It's just the van. But my daughter's little car is named Louie. And we got it, and the license plate is LUE. And so Louie. Not exactly, but close enough. But all of a sudden, Louis matters, and Louis has purpose, and Louis has meaning. And when Louis needs something fixed, you feel sad that Louis needs something fixed. And it's weird because the rasa, maybe the sacrifice of me not getting a new car, and we got her a car instead, and I get to drive the van still. That sacrifice is what gives it the gestalt meaning. Maybe that sacrifice is what gives it the soul. And so the gestalt is that when I say give it a name, when you name things, what do you give them?
You give them like a spirit, like you like how you just explained how you felt sad for the car, even though it's an object.
So why is it important for faculty to get to know the students' names then? This is a great way to cheat, by the way, even though I can picture most of you, which is great.
They become a real person, so they actually connect and they actually care for them and want them to pass, whether them just being a school ID number and they're just a grade.
Right. And it's because it's like the more you get to know people from the bottom up, you stop seeing them as quote student, and they start becoming they start becoming a person. They start having a spirit or a soul. What is it like when someone loses their soul? What does that mean? Going zombie on us.
They're like that too.
You're dead to me, man. Well, but so I know this is metaphysical crap, but this works really well. But when what causes someone to lose their soul? Sorry, Derek.
No meaning.
Mike, I'm sorry. Mike lives in a concrete world, doesn't live in this fuzzy buddy world.
Emotional.
Oh no, so that's the thing, is I do live very much in an emotional world, but the stuff you're talking about is very odd to me.
It is, and it's very odd. I started a discussion board on a bicycle website about bikes with soul, and about half of the people that read this stupid discussion board started really digging on it and say, yeah, I got this bike, it's awesome, it's got tons of soul. And this other people are saying, well, I just ride bikes because they work well, I don't care if they have a soul or not. And it has nothing to do with the bicycle, and this is what the whole point of the thing was. It has to do with the person, and the person sufficing meaning onto something. And the meaning, like, I don't care one rat's rear end about my laptop. If someone steals it, I'll get another one. I don't feel bad. But if someone takes Allison's cinnamon something, she'll feel sad. And because of that attachment, and that there's something that's more to a particular object than its actual function.
There's something about this that also relates to individual temperaments. So it's not. It's
oh yeah,
kind
absolutely. That's why.
Well,
it's funny because we do.
So this touched on something that's older for me. I just realized that this experience of attachment of meaning to concepts and things in this specific way is something that actually runs back to when I was 19 and had a problem with a professor in a Bible class about this. So it's too big for this class discussion.
No,
but
absolutely.
There's like a whole temperament related thing to this concept.
It's absolutely, and there's a whole set of personality characteristics. So the reason why we're talking about this, and because I blend all my classes together, but in physio, we're talking about we're starting to talk about emotions and how emotions work. In my intro class, we're starting talking about personality and how personality works. My research method students are collecting a bunch of data on personality, and so all of my classes have similar themes that push through, and then I kind of line all my classes up so that I don't have to change my frame of mind as I'm going through all of my 6 different preps. Anyway.
But when like me and have all your classes, they all
you follow the theme a lot better. That's right, because Andrea has the
Oh,
and
we
Fernando
get
too. I
those.
think you're in most of them as well.
Those
But
I think.
but so okay, so let me skip the thing that the most important thing. We'll push the metaphysical side down and not go there anymore. But it's how things are connected. That's actually the key. And so what Ramachandran, if you watch it, it's an hour and 15-minute long, and it's really amazing. I found it on UCSD TV when they used to air UCSD TV at night. So every night on the public access channel, UCSD TV would come on and you could watch live lectures of famous people. And so periodically, if I couldn't sleep, I'd just turn it on and watch it. And it was this guy talking. So I hit record with my, hitting record on my not DVR back at the time, is that you I recorded it and put it on a video cassette, put the video cassette on my computer, and then I started showing it to my classes. And now, luckily, I don't have to deal with all those recordings anymore because they're all on YouTube. But I came in with him talking about this idea of rasa and the spirit of something. And when you make art, I'm going to scroll over here real quick. You're taking an object, Mike, and giving it meaning. So what's the difference between art and reality?
But isn't art tricky because everybody has their own meaning for it?
Yeah, because where does the spirit come from?
Ourselves.
Yeah, you give it the meaning. And so a single piece of art might have a lot of meaning for somebody versus somebody else has no meaning for whatsoever. So if you're struggling with the whole pandemic thing and being stuck at home and being an extrovert and not being able to extrovert all over the place, and every day, if you're if you're in my classes and you see this stupid little elephant, that gives you some sort of grounding. Maybe that becomes a good piece of art for you. When you see that little elephant, you become grounded. Or this, whatever this flower thing is, or my Pabst Blue Ribbon, which I've got to update the number down. I've had a
The one thing that's super bold is the elephant. I can't even see the flower.
Yeah, and
Did anyone else see
maybe
that
it's
flower?
because of the color, or it's because of the eyes, or just because of the way the contrast. Like this one up here is actually one of my favorites that she did with
See
the
the
swing.
flower. Is that a
That's the one
camellia or
I
something?
love.
Say it
That's
again,
really
Mike.
cool.
What kind of flower is that? Looks like a camellia or something like that.
Honestly,
You
don't
can
know.
see that?
I think my wife did this
Hey.
one. I don't see the name on it, but she basically, my wife's not artistic at all, but she went to this class with a bunch of her friends
Where you
where,
wine and paint.
yeah, well, it's so I forget what it's called, but it's something like
Those are fun.
something wine and paint or something like that. But yeah. So
Yes, sir.
and then so the instructor, the Bob Ross, taught her how to do to do the painting. And anyway, carafes and canvas, I think it was called. Paint and sip, could be. Okay.
There's a whole bunch of different ones. They're
Yeah.
all over the place.
Yeah, and then she had a fun time doing it, and it was good. Okay, but so the thing with art is art only has meaning if you find meaning to it. And someone who's a very good artist, and this goes with music, it goes with anything. If someone's a really good artist, they put things together in such a way that makes you stop and find meaning in it. And if you find meaning in things, then you stop and pay attention to them. Has anybody watched This Is Us in here?
Yes, don't get me started.
Okay, but there's a scene with the old lady with the Alzheimer's is staring at the painting. And she's her meaning for the painting has nothing to do with the painting. It's the meaning of looking at the painting. So if you have no idea what I'm talking about, start binge watching that stupid show. I hate it, but I've watched every episode because I hate it. But anyway, my wife watches it and I'll walk by, and then at the end I'll sit down to see what happens before the end.
This is how I feel about Supernatural.
Yeah, I
How
haven't
dare
I haven't
you.
done it there yet.
started on Supernatural.
How dare you?
Controversial opinions.
Wait a minute.
Hold on. It's what's really, so what makes one TV show good versus bad?
There's
Your preferences.
It's your preferences, and you give it certain sets of meaning. I love, like, there's old car shows on Discovery Channel, or not Discovery Channel, on Motor Trend Channel, that I like watching, where these guys are fixing up old cars. And my wife goes,
Oh,
you don't
that's my
work on
dad.
cars. Why do you like that stuff? And well, the answer is because if I had a garage and I had time, I would work on cars, but I don't. I work on bicycles because I have time to do that. Anyway, so think about this, is that when you give things a name, or you give things meaning and give them spirit, you can start to trigger connected memories. One of the things that I really dig is that there's a fishing lure, okay, that is shaped like this, and it's got stripes on one side, and it's kind of shaped like that, and it has a big ass hook at the back of it, okay, and then I'm trying not to draw a penis, but it kind of, never mind. Okay, so there's the fishing lines attached, okay, and it doesn't look like a fish at all. Okay.
But
Okay,
it
you
moves
guys are all
like one.
snickering, so I'm going to erase it now, because that's just, okay, so I'll just draw one that looks like a spoon, like that. It doesn't look like a fish at all. I could go get it. It's in the shed, and I could show it to you, and that's what it looks like, but whatever. But are the fish going, hey, that's a sexy thing, let me go after that?
Mm-mm.
No.
They're
That looks
cooking food.
tasty.
That looks tasty in a creepy voice. Thanks, Mike. But what it does is this big piece of metal just moves itself, flutters in the water. And when it flutters in the water, it triggers the rasa. It has the meaning to a predator fish of a wounded bait fish. And it's really a simple thing. It's a piece of metal that moves in the water, but it has just enough details.
I didn't know how fishing worked. Thanks.
Well, actually, it's really fun with having the swimming pool. Well, I'm gonna have to get the GoPro out with my son here and do this. I've been trying to teach him how to fish using the swimming pool, because a lot of times when we go fishing, I'll catch fish and he won't. And it's annoying, because he gets really sad that he can't catch fish. And so one of the things we can do is, like, I cast out and I sit and I can feel the bottom of the whatever we were fishing at Spanish Landing on last week. And I can feel the bottom. And whenever it gets to the weeds, I move it differently than when it's on the sand or on the rocks. I move it differently because you can feel it through the line. And because I understand the idea of what the bottom is based on what the lure feels like across the grass or the sand or the rocks, I move it differently. And he doesn't have that understanding. So he just kind of moves it the same way all the time, which you can't do. You have to change the way you move the little thingy as you go. And yeah, and well, it's something that you've learned through years of practice, and then you stop thinking about it. It becomes a procedural memory. And then so when the sensory feedback goes, you change what you're doing. If it's sand, you scoot it sideways. If it's rocks, you pop it up. And if it's weeds, you pop and let it sit for a second so it can settle down in the weeds. But it's not something that you really think about. You just do based on the sensory feedback that comes back at you. That's the procedural memory. Then the autobiographical memory is you remember a time when you were doing this and you got snagged in the rocks, or you're doing this and you got your hooks full of weeds, or you didn't catch anything. That's the autobiographical memory of it. But then once you start consolidating it, then you have to try to turn it around and teach it to someone else as a concept. That's a hint for you guys, Sandy. When you have to teach it them as a concept, you have to figure out what is the rasa, what is the spirit of this thing, what are the key bottom up elements, the minimum things that make what it is. Yeah, Mike's sensation for drive. If I tried to drive a forklift, there'd be holes in everything and everybody around me. Just the way that you steer it is completely different compared to the way you steer a real thing. But again, once you start doing it, it stops becoming conscious. And then when you have to teach it to someone else, you have to step back out of yourself and try to explain the concept in a way. And that's why, like, when you talk about a stupid fishing lure, it doesn't look like a fish most of the time. A lot of the fishing lures that I use, like the grasshopper that was on my hat last week, I have a fly fishing lure. It doesn't look like a grasshopper, but when it sits on top of the water, it looks like enough of a grasshopper to trigger the trout to munch on it because it thinks it's a grasshopper. And it has to look different than a little piece of fuzz floating on the water because there's lots of pieces of fuzz floating on the water. The trout has to understand what is food, what is not food. You have to understand what the trout understands. Fishing takes way too much time and energy. Totally worth it. So when you try to figure out a good fishing lure, technically a good fishing lure is art to a fish. I'm trying to get rid of rats right now. Me and my Elmer Fudd days, I set 4 traps last night, all 4 set off, none of them got. So the rats are figuring out the rasa of my traps. I have to think differently about my trap settings than the rats. I don't want to use poison because poison ends up killing a bigger range of animals than just the rats you're trying to poison. And I could sit out with a BB gun, but it's cold. Wait till it gets warmer, then I'll sit out with a BB gun. Underpants, BB gun, Pabst Blue Ribbon, set. Okay, and then my neighbors call the police and have me arrested.
Need some overalls and a straw hat.
Yep. Now in the city, it's more underpants. You got to be a little bit more Walt at the end of the Breaking Bad. Just standing there with a gun in your underpants.
With a button-down shirt.
Yeah, that's it. That's the look. My neighbor does that all the time. He's on a Zoom meeting. He's wearing his boxer shorts and a button-down shirt. Like, dude.
That's
Anyway.
the way.
No, pants. We have a sign. Pants, Paul. Every day. Pants. Okay. We love him. Our neighbors are absolutely great people. Okay, so when you think about when you give something meaning, meaning is how you connect things together. And a lot of your long-term memory, a lot of your ability to connect things together are the way that you suffice meaning to them. And as soon as something has a meaning, and this is something I think we didn't really talk about. We talked about state-dependent learning, but like this happened with Mike just a few minutes ago. Okay, we were talking about this stuff and all of a sudden he had this argument in his head from years ago bubble forth. And why do emotions trigger memories? Cheyenne, you know the answer to this one. Why do emotions trigger memory, Cheyenne?
Because of the
I'm drawing a little parts of your brain right here.
the hippocampus and the long-term memory, and I'm spacing on the specific memory.
Okay, so this
Not
part,
episodic. It's ugh.
you'll get there.
Where's the hammer? See the sickle.
Your amygdala, the
I'll draw a
hippocampus.
star over here. That'll make you feel better. Okay, so there's the amygdala. This little area is called the fornix.
Mm-hmm.
If you watch that Ramachandran video, and please do, because this really connects all this stuff together. The guy that crashes on the freeway and doesn't recognize his parents unless he's talking to him on the phone. Cool. Imposter syndrome. Awesome stuff. Watch the videos. Basically, he damages his fornix. His amygdala doesn't connect to his memories anymore. And he starts referring to himself in the third person because when he talks about himself, he doesn't have an emotional reaction. Therefore, it's not me, it's another self. There's a video, one of the Motor Trend shows that I watch is this tough mudding challenge or something stupid where these guys race their trucks through mud pits. And this one guy always talks about himself in third person. He's like, well, Jimmy's driving the truck today. Sir, aren't you named Jimmy? Yes. Jimmy's driving the truck fast today. That's usually a sign of severe emotional trauma from the childhood. where the person refers to themselves in the third person because they can't connect themselves to themselves, so they refer to themselves as, hey, Steve's gonna go to the bathroom in a minute. Aren't you gonna go to the bathroom in a minute? Yes, Steve is. And that disconnect is that the amygdala can't connect to the memory, so you generate a third person memory as opposed to a first person memory from those particular objects, and then the person learns to talk that way.
Okay.
There's a Seinfeld character that did that all the time. Anyway, so the other part that's in here is your hypothalamus. I forgot the hippocampus. Okay, so I ran out of screen over there. Okay, so the hippocampus, hypothalamus, amygdala, this little area is called the fornix. But this is your limbic system. And your limbic system is the part where this is where the state dependent learning comes in. And this is where the emotionals, the feels come in. And this is, I'm gonna write the word here. This is where the meaning comes from. It's these connections in here is where things get meaning. And things get their rasa. And so if you have just enough details to trigger that spirit, it gives you the feeling of that same thing. Anybody know what in humans what triggers our memories the fastest?
Smell.
Yeah. And it turns out that our brains we're terrible smellers compared to other animals. It'd be really fun to make a smell amplifier. Think about that. So if I go and sniff under the house right now, I get a faint whiff of rats and a very nice whiff of minty, and a little hint of pepper spray. The pepper spray is fading out, and I've been using a mint that really the rats really don't like. And so wherever I spray the mint, they don't hang out there and they move somewhere else. So I need to just completely coat the underside of our house with mint, and that should get rid of them. But where it dissipates pretty quickly, and then they just come back. Every time we block off a hole in the house, the rats find a new hole, or I find a new hole. Luckily, it's muddy, so I can see where the little dirty footprints are. I got them. So I set 2 traps by one of the holes they were coming in 2 nights ago. Sorry.
You should just throw mint around your house.
We have lots of mint growing around the house, but we keep pruning it to make marinades because it's really good mixed with parsley, mint, and yogurt, and as a sauce on things. Super tasty. Anyway.
Weinert, are we gonna have a final?
No.
No.
What do you think?
No.
Oh.
Well, I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say no just because I don't think, because of the way the semester is ending up, a final is very useful for you. In statistics, we're going to have a final, but everybody's going to work together, and we're going to be doing stuff to do it happily together. Most likely, I'm going to have you write just a reflection essay for the class.
Also, you want an essay?
Yeah, but it's not going to be. I don't want it to be okay. Memorize all this other crap, because this class, if we were still in campus and doing stuff and it was a little bit more concrete, absolutely we would have a final. But I mean, my physio class, the final is going to be, on Canvas, and it's really easy to cheat on if you really want to. So
that final was hard. Very hard.
Yeah, but you did great. You got 80-something%, which was awesome.
Who? No,
You.
It was the curve that saved me.
It doesn't matter. You're still one of the top grades in the curve.
Okay, thanks.
Just
Sorry.
take it.
Take it.
I'll take it.
No, it was great. You did really well. Ryan did really well too. And it kicked your butt too, the physio final.
Oh yeah, that thing wrecked me. I felt so bad about it.
Dude,
Sorry.
physio, I had physio at Grossmont. I think I had 76% at the end of the class, and I was either the highest score or the second highest score.
76 is good for that class. Sadly, that class is just a mountain of memorization.
A guy curved it so hard that I got an A.
We prefer to use the word scale. Thank you. Okay. Anyway, the goal is to get people through it and get them so that they can look at this diagram and actually represent where it is in the brain. Whatever. Okay. So emotions trigger memories. This idea of rasa, the spirit of something, is what really helps people trigger their memories. So if you have something that looks just enough like something, it will trigger a memory. It activates just enough nodes. Okay, so hold on a second. Look at the elephant.
How's everybody's quarantine?
Boring.
Who gets to
Same.
quarantine?
Not great.
You guys get to quarantine?
It was
Yeah,
just like
I've
reference.
been
of-
quarantining.
I go and help my aunt every once in a while at her work, but that's about it.
Yeah, I still have to go to Lowe's.
I've been entertaining myself by being my dog's groomer.
My son just filmed me in my natural habitat. I don't know what that means. So this is it. I drew it backwards.
That's ugly.
Yeah, I mean, it's got this big ass hook on it, and it, yeah, that's.
Yeah, no.
So actually, my drawing wasn't too inaccurate. Just I didn't want you to think I was just being a creep.
It's flatter in person.
The important part is that it's shiny and it flaps around.
Yeah, and when you run it through the water, it does this.
So it has a reflection.
Yeah, and so it has just enough characteristics. It has just enough characteristics to recognize that that's a fish. But here's the trick. A good fishing lure doesn't just, because there's lots of fish in the ocean. Why would that lure is meant for tuna or halibut. And why would a tuna or halibut eat that as opposed to another fish swimming by?
Looks like a sardine.
But a sardine looks like a sardine. There's lots of sardines in the ocean, but it turns out if you cast that out into a school of sardines and let it sink and then start reeling it in, the fish is more likely to hit the lure than it is an actual sardine.
It looks like an injured sardine.
But an injured sardine looks like an injured sardine. So if you have a live bait sitting next to it, well, what happens is sometimes if you trigger something that activates the rasa with enough, that is specifically activates the rasa, it makes the person think of whatever you're thinking of more. So if this activates all of the triggers of a wounded fish, the fish can't help but bite it. It's like if you wiggle a string to a cat. Wiggling a string doesn't look like a rat or a mouse, but what does a cat do?
With a fixed action pattern.
Tries to kill it.
Yeah,
Fuss at it and bites it.
its eyes bug out and its ears poke up, and then it immediately tries to kill it. Okay. Oh, now we get my daughter coming through. Hi. How was your Zoom class?
She okay?
She followed us now.
She dropped Easter confections. Oh, and she's going for an energy drink. This is not going to end well. And she didn't flip me off. She gave me this instead, which I was usually waiting for the flip off. But anyway, she likes those yerba mate things, the energy. They're not really energy drink. They're just tea, but shh, don't tell her that. Okay. Anyway.
Did she just hear you?
Yeah, it's a good placebo. It's fine. It's good. But so if you create something, so this is the main point of this, and then we'll be done. If you create something with the elements, that are greater than reality. So this thing doesn't look like a fish. It doesn't act like a fish. It's actually better than a fish. So why would the fish fall for this?
Because it's giving it meaning.
It's giving it meaning that's even more meaningful than a real thing that it should be eating would be.
It's the exemplar of it.
It's actually more than the exemplar. So I'll go back to that video, the really boring guy. If I see a tomato sitting out in front of me and it's a tomato, and I don't know it's a tomato, but remember what happened with the beer bottles and the little beetle?
It was more attracted to the beer bottles than it was to the other beetle, female
Because
beetles.
the beer bottle hit all of the key rasa elements, the spirit of the female abdomen, and he's like, "Oh, I'm mating with that," because it had just enough of the elements. Did I play the dead duck video for you guys?
Yes.
Yeah. Why mate with the dead duck? No, you shouldn't mate with the dead duck. That's weird.
It was still a duck in its head.
It had just enough
It was
elements to make it into something to mate with.
Oh, now it makes more sense than when you played the video.
Yeah, so I think it's funny anyway, so I'm just going to keep playing it regardless of whether it makes sense. But the idea is, if you have something that triggers enough of the rasa, the spirit of something, it automatically produces that behavior. In behaviorism, we call the term a releaser. And that if something triggers that releaser, it activates, going back to this part down here, it activates as part of the cingulus gyrus. And the cingulus gyrus has a bunch of emotional motor programs in it, like mating and a bunch of other pre-programmed behaviors. Okay, and so when the cingulus gyrus, which sits on top of the hippocampus, if something triggers that rasa, triggers that emotional reaction, that triggers the cingulus gyrus to produce a series of behaviors. And so when we say, why do emotions trigger memory so much? Well, the answer is because if something is just enough to activate the rasa, the spirit of that memory, the autobiographical elements start bubbling forth. And when you start bubbling forth from your past, you go, ah, that's where the rasa comes from. That's where the spirit comes from. And it's actually really kind of cool. And that so people all the time try to figure out, like, especially with fishing lures. I mean, this one I got from a friend who, I'm not going to peel it off the wall again, but a friend who passed away. He used to go fishing with up in Santa Cruz and go surf casting for halibut, and sometimes they have bonita and other stuff up there. And he used to use this lure all the time. And I've never fished with him in the ocean before, but it also has a lot more rasa and spirit because it was his. He had this really cool old tackle box that he gave all of his old fishing stuff to my son and myself before he passed away. And to me, it's very meaningful because it has, like, we're using Dean's old stuff. And that's when I caught a fish on one of Dean's old fishing poles on last week. And it's kind of nice because we actually, you know, the spirit of it is more than the actual substance itself. So
this is kind of like my thing for having possessions that show wear.
Yeah, I'm wearing a pair of, well, I'm not wearing my jeans, I got paint on, but I have a couple old pairs of jeans that are just comfy, and I like wearing them. And then, but the ones that I have right now are way too big. But why do I just keep wearing them?
Because they're comfy.
They're comfortable.
They're comfortable. And it's not quite, I mean, it's not jammies comfortable, because at one of my wife's Zoom meetings, there's a guy wearing like this silk pajamas, like the ones, the shiny and then the different colored trim, and just creeper level, just anyway, not for me. But it's like, I'm gonna wear jeans because I usually wear jeans when I'm teaching. And in summer, when it gets hot in here, I'll start wearing shorts. But because I typically wear shorts when I'm teaching. And I wear my orange sweatshirt because it fits the rasa, fits the idea of my orange sweatshirt. Most of you are familiar with my orange sweatshirt. I have this and my other brown Cuyamaca one hanging out here just in case. I went out this morning and my wife was on a Zoom, so I couldn't keep going back in and out of the house. So I had to find out something in here to wear. Last week, Friday, I was wearing my parka. It was so cold. Okay, so now, the more you start connecting things to each other, you start to find common meaning between things. That's why, again, this class is so great, because to me, it starts connecting things together that you never would have connected before, but by understanding the way that our brain processes and thinks, it understands the way that you deal with things. And if you create something, and this is what, if you create something that has the spirit, that has the spirit without actually having enough substance to generate it, people say, ooh, that's art. But that's a little too abstract at that point. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my stop recording. It's going live wherever it's going.